So the first question today is, what is das Reinheitsgebot, and what does it have to do with beer? And what does beer have to do with the nature of reality? And these are, of course, all good questions given the title of the video. So specifically, talking about das Reinheitsgebot, that is a German word, a compound consisting of Reinheit, which is the most common word for purity, and Gebot, which is a commandment. And specifically, das Reinheitsgebot refers to a tradition in Germany going back probably well into the High Middle Ages, I suspect, based on my knowledge of the subject, but officially first occurring in the early 16th century in Bavaria, I think 1516, regarding the purity of beer, which is to say the purity of the ingredients of a specific beer. These were based on the traditions of monasteries and cloisters, and the monks would develop certain beer brewing techniques and, of course, certain ingredients. And this wasn't unique to Bavaria. There are other places in Germany, North Rhine-Westphalia, etc., that issued specific regulations pertaining to the ingredients of beer. And this commandment, or these regulations, some would be called das Reinheitsgebot. And of course, there was a good reason for this. The monks who had worked on the beer formula, these various beer formulae for centuries, had stumbled upon something, and it was a very, I guess, tasty beer, and remains a tasty beer. I don't drink beer at all, but I am knowledgeable about the subject for, well, reasons of German history. And one, of course, ought to strive to maintain that quote-unquote purity of the ingredients and the composition of the beer, because otherwise that beer, whatever it might be, some type of lager or what have you, or dark beer anyway, will lose its particular flavor, and it will lose the characteristics that mark it as that specific beer, hence das Reinheitsgebot. And das Reinheitsgebot could probably apply to virtually any dish you're talking about, whether it's baking a cake or preparing some special meal. If it's a time-honored tradition, or there's some recipe that's quite familiar, and you deviate too far from that, you will be violating the respective Reinheitsgebot of that recipe or that dish, and it will taste sometimes very different from what you might expect. And of course, this all makes sense in the context of beer or food or what have you. But there's another kind of Reinheitsgebot. It's kind of a silent Reinheitsgebot that pervades human ideologies. And I had this discussion not too long ago with Red Pill Germany, how one is sort of interested in perhaps a variety of subjects and somehow manages to offend everyone involved, despite essentially by belonging or not belonging to no faction, or not really declaring one's allegiance. Now, nominally, I'm a quote-unquote MGTOW content producer. Sometimes I'll make videos on that subject matter, sometimes not. But MGTOW has been guilty of this historically, at least on YouTube as well, which is to say the puritanical, punishing those who would go against the silent, because it's never officially declared, Reinheitsgebot, and then it sort of devolves into petty infighting. There were numerous instances of this throughout the years, or have been. And the same is, of course, true of the outright. My partner in conversation on occasion, a reactionary expat who is not outright, but a reactionary, as the title or the appellation implies, he sometimes rouses the ire of the outright because he's not quite as hardcore on certain issues, such as quote-unquote race mixing. And moreover, if you listen to his videos, he's pretty well-rounded and aware of the realities of the world, which is to say, perhaps there were some elements, say in the past, that were laudable and one might want to return to them, but on the other hand, you have the issues of discomfort, disease, etc. And would he honestly want to live in this world? Probably not. So basically, all ideologies, political, ethnic, whatever, they're usually, well, almost certainly going to be shot through by this Reinheitsgebot, a kind of silent commandment not to deviate too far from whatever the precepts and tenets might be. The problem with this, and I've talked about similar issues in the past, is that unlike baking a cake or preparing some kind of roast chicken or brewing a beer, there aren't specific time-honored ingredients that go into understanding reality. Quite the opposite. If your goal is to understand the world you live in, and I think you could argue that virtually everyone is attempting to in his or her own way, although some people are much more invested in the question per se, as well as the activity of understanding the world, then pursuing that knowledge in an interdisciplinary fashion, which incorporates a wide variety of fields, because ultimately all fields are interrelated, and being willing to throw off and shed what had formerly been considered knowledge or points of view that no longer are coherent in light of a new understanding. I mean, these are all essential elements, which is to say, apprehending reality as it is, understanding the world, seeking knowledge, this actually flies in the face of das Reinheitsgebot. And as someone who continually, I guess, gets every label in the book from Marxist to far right to everything, and I think there are good reasons for that, most precisely because everyone is obsessed with his own ideology. This will continue to fail us as time proceeds. I don't expect this to change. I mean, I've seen this in libertarian circles. It's certainly present in the alt-right. Most recently, there was a video by a woman, I think her name is Tara something. In any event, she calls herself Reality Calls. She has this show where she interviews people. I don't really watch her stuff. I think there were 2 videos in total, including the most recent one that I've watched or listened to. And she had a IQ researcher on, a Danish guy named Emil Kierkegaard, or I think in English it's Emil Kierkegaard. Anyway, I'm trying to pronounce it properly in Danish. I'm trying to get him on my channel as well. Fascinating guy. If you look at his blog, wide range of subjects he's conversant in and knowledgeable. But you could see in the comment section that the hostility and the invective directed towards him by nominal members of the alt-right was pretty profound. And a lot of this came from the fact that he seems to be a very data-driven guy. Where questions were posed to him, well, we don't have data on X, he would respond, well, so we can't really draw any good conclusions. And it's clear that what the audience wanted. The audience wanted this Nordic genius, as it were, to basically prop up and support alt-right ideas. And of course, there's always going to be some crossover. On occasion, the alt-right uses science, and the issue of regression to the mean came up, which he corrected as regression towards the mean. And, this has been covered by Coltane, and neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to make here is that they saw him in violation of the alt-right's Reinheitsgebot. And this was punishable by, basically loud comments in the comment section, calling him a white cuck or a beta virgin loser or what have you. Nothing really new if you think about it. I've heard these things before. But I want to offer a sales pitch as to why the seeking of knowledge is important, why understanding reality in all its aspects and in all its facets with a willingness to change one's mind is so important. And that's because if we make our best attempt, pardon me, an effort to understand reality as it stands, as opposed to the way we wish it to be, or trying to bend it to our will to fit whatever Reinheitsgebot of our respective ideology might be present, we're going to have a lot better chance at fixing the problems of the world, whatever those problems might be. People who are interested in this approach to the world and life generally want to be right about their understanding of things. It's why at the beginning of the last video I corrected my careless error in stating that we're moving away from the Andromeda galaxy as opposed to the opposite. It drove me crazy that I mentioned that, and then like a brain fart, and then I just realized afterwards, okay. Imagine if Red Pill Chemist, who is a solid-state physicist, had some bizarre set of tenets that interfered with his work. I mean, clearly that would be bad. And yet, for the everyday person wielding an ideology, this just seems fine. But we are doing ourselves all a disservice by continuously pushing this Reinheitsgebot and the hostilities, unnecessary hostilities it tends to stir up. I mean, I'll talk to virtually anyone. Maybe not in SJWs because of the way they are, but the fact that I talk to people that I don't agree with 100%, or even might have occasional oppositional views, I mean, that would mark me in traditional Reinheitsgebot circles as a heretic, and I suppose I am. But I see this as an opportunity to learn new things by talking to other people and gaining new insights. I don't need to agree 100% about everything, but maybe I didn't know something and I've learned something new. It's quite possible, and it has happened. So this is why we, I think, collectively should strive for open-mindedness and a lack of rigidity, which is to say, let not a Reinheitsgebot determine your worldview, because we are not preparing a dish or brewing beer here. We're trying to understand what it is we're doing in this world and how the world works. If you approach something with an a priori ideological stance, almost certainly at some point in time there will be a conflict. And when you violate the puritanical, the inquisition of that respective ideology will hunt you down and chase you. Which is to say, for myself, what ideology I mean, you can claim that everybody represents as pushing ideology. I mean, knowledge, trying to understand the world. I just want to understand the world as best as I can. And if I don't know something, I will concede to that. And if I make a mistake, I will concede that too. This is my issue with all of these people, whether it's, libertarian purists, alt-right purists, MGTOW purists. They all, in some sense, are representing the same idea, which is to say, we're never changing our mind about this because, well, oftentimes it's driven by fear, isn't it? Being pushed out of the group. Not really the best procedure. Anyway, I thought I would bring this up and tie it into the brewing of beer, because, yeah, they're two very different things, of course. And one is really beneficial if you want a tasty beer that's consistent with the taste you've come to know, and the other really demands that you depart from whatever preconceived ideologies you might have held or hold. I think it's okay to have an ideology, but if enough counter information or counterpoints arise that vitiate that or make it seem less valid, then one needs to be willing to yield and change one's mind. And I think this is a problem that human beings in a general sense face, and it's probably the biggest problem for pushing, civilization forward. One of the biggest problems, at least. There are others. But anyway, I wanted to offer some commentary on that, particularly in light of that discussion with Emil Kierkegaard. I think that's the right way to pronounce it in Danish. Hopefully I'll get him on. Really, really interesting guy. I hope he responds. Everyone take care, and I will check you out later. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.